All right, so I'm here to talk about Wyoming geology today. A lot of us have lived here a while, we've been around the state, and we've seen some things that we just think are neat, and when you get down to a really scientific level, a lot of people have a difficult time explaining. We know a lot about the normal stuff: the coal, Powder River Basin, oil, Pinedale, and natural gas over in Pinedale as well. That's formed by geology. A lot of geologists study that stuff. Everybody kind of knows where it is. We've got other resource minerals here too. On the left is uranium in the Pumpkin Buttes area up in the southern Powder River Basin. Top right is trona. And the last way our geology helps us out is attracting the greenies. They come here as part of the tourism. First part of that tourism is what they used to call Coulter's Hell. He's naked on the right because he tried to attack some Indians. They stripped him and tried to kill him. He ran off. But Coulter's Hell was what they now know as Yellowstone. He slept there for a while using the caldera to keep it warm. You can see right here, it tracks over Highway 84, moving west to east, and right now it's sitting under Yellowstone. A caldera is basically a hot spot that the continental plate is moving over. And it provides us with some sweet things in Yellowstone: the thermal pools, the geysers, and the mud spots. It's one of the state and the country's most treasured places. You can't really argue with that. Also, sitting on a hot spot and having tons of fault in it, it has a lot of earthquakes. The most recent one was a magnitude 0.6, and it happened at 4 this morning. There was one about a magnitude 3.7 or 3.9 about a month ago. Also up in that area is the Tetons. They're the youngest mountain range in Wyoming, and they're about 13 to 14 million years old. They weren't thrusted up like most of the mountain ranges are, but that area was a high plateau at one point, and that guy just pulled it apart, and the valley fell in and kind of created mountains by default. So that's how the Tetons were formed. Next up, we have the geologists coming to Wyoming. A lot of these guys had studied on the East Coast and in Europe, and they got here and they were like, what is going on? How did these mountain ranges form, specifically the Snowies, and how did all those rocks get in Vitawoo? This right here is the Alps. Those are your typical compression mountains where Italy rammed into the European continental plate and up went some mountains. Kind of simple. It doesn't really work that way in most of Wyoming. A lot of this stuff in Wyoming was created by subduction, which works like this, where one continental plate slides under the other one at about a 30-degree angle. The stuff in Wyoming started sliding under at a 30-degree angle. Something kind of gummed up the works, changed the angle degree to about 10, and the whole process just kind of stopped. And then we have what we call a laramide orogeny. And what that did was take a lot of the rocks that were deep, deep down under the current layers and threw them up into the air, which is why you've got Vitawoo and some of the other ranges in Wyoming. So they couldn't figure all this out until recently, and the laramide orogeny is still a theory at this point. It's the best one they've got. It also formed things like the Rock Springs uplift, which you can see right here on the right. There's one in Rawlins as well, but I couldn't find a picture of that. And I didn't want to go to Rawlins to take one. So, what if there wasn't all these upthrust and compression events in Wyoming? Well, Wyoming would be probably longer by about the distance of a marathon, which is about 26 miles. Right there's a map of the Boston Marathon. Okay, now we're on to rivers. This is the Snake River up in the Tetons in the background. Normally when rivers run into mountains, they kind of pool up and can create a lake and then just run off because obviously water can't climb uphill. This is the Wind River Basin. Water has cut through the mountains, yet the mountains are 13,000 feet taller than where the water started. Another thing that confounded those early geologists. They couldn't figure out what had happened. Eventually, they think lava flow started, blew a bunch of ash in, the rivers flowed on top of that, carved their way into the mountains, and once the ash washed into the Gulf of Mexico, it was gone. All right, thank you for listening.
intermission, which is a great time to grab a bite to eat, grab something to drink, whatever you'd like to do.